From Aphex Twin and Autechre to Bots of Canada and the iconic music videos of Chris Cunningham, how did a seemingly obscure corner of electronic music break into the mainstream of the 1990s and quietly lay the groundwork for decades of electronic music to come? Of course, you cannot speak about the origin of IDM without mentioning Selected Ambient Works, 85 to 92. By pulling the language of techno and rave away from the dance floor and into something more intimate, atmospheric and personal, it helped define the direction the genre would soon take.
The sort of nature of electronic music isn't meant to be talked about, really. And whereas like rock music and music with lyrics basically is more sort of directed towards, you can talk about it and stuff because songs have got meanings and stuff, whereas electronic music's more abstract, and I think it sort of undermines it when you start talking about it, really. Because like all my friends listen to electronic music, but we don't really sit around and talk about it, we just listen to it.
Much like the term trip-hop, intelligent dance music, or IDM, was never really embraced by any of the artists it was ascribed to. But the name stuck, and for better or worse, everyone knew what it meant. At the center of this emerging sound was Warp Records, a small Sheffield label founded just a few years earlier. In '92, Warp brought these ideas together on Artificial Intelligence, a compilation explicitly presented as electronic listening music, and now widely seen as a defining moment in the emergence of IDM. And its very first track came from Richard D. James, under an early alias, The Diceman. The track was called Polygon Window, a name James would turn into an alias of its own the following year.
He would come over, he was about 22 or 23, a very young guy. I was easily twice his age, if not older. And we started doing a record together. And what was interesting about him, he had no formal training, but then again, a lot of people don't have formal training who come into music from a cultural tradition which doesn't have a notated tradition of music, where they have a tradition of performance music. And Richard was kind of like one of those guys. And I asked him where he got it, what instruments he played. He said, well, he didn't really play anything. And he said where his ideas came from. He said, well, I just would go to junk stores and buy whatever electronic junk there was, and I would see what made sounds, and I made music out of it. That was his explanation. I thought it was a pretty good explanation. When I listen to music, it's not like that.
What struck you about Richard's music? I mean, what did you hear in it that was interesting to you?
What I liked about it was that I liked it and I didn't understand it. I'm always attracted to things that I can't understand. It's a fundamental aspect of curiosity. When I don't understand something, I get curious about it. And I liked his music, and I didn't know what I liked about it. I wanted to hear more of it, and I wanted to fool around with it.
But Aphex Twin was only one part of the story. The Artificial Intelligence compilation also introduced a wider circle of artists pushing electronic music in similar directions. Among them were Sean Booth and Rob Brown, a Manchester duo better known as Autechre.
For a lot of people, this kind of music style, like, well, how exactly would you like to call it? Would you call it intelligent IDM? I don't know what the right name for this, but what's the difference between you and Aphex Twin or whoever's BDJ, anyone? What's the difference?
It's just a different sound. That's all it is, literally. I mean, it's like, the only reason we get grouped with Aphex Twin is because we do things that are original, and we still do dance music. And it's like, unless you're kind of garage or unless it's easily definable, we kind of shove you in our bracket, which is kind of original music. But I mean, we are like completely different. If you listen to our album and then you listen to like Ambient Works too, you'd be hard pushed to find anything that's the same.
What do you think actually with this kind of stuff? Is it, production-wise, is it more complex than say writing a tune with a catchy hook? Or
no, it's no more complex. It's just that there's a kind of stage that you go through where you're getting more ideas. Like with a garage track, you tend to write to a formula, which it's just as difficult. It takes just as long to come up with the end result because you have to fine tune it so that it suits whatever it was. Whereas if you do music like ours, it's about having ideas, but it's quicker because you don't.
With our stuff, as opposed to say like a garage tune, you write to a formula. And if it goes beyond that formula, you cut whatever you don't need off.
Yeah.
We keep it perfect, traditional to garage. With the sort of stuff we do, you can go on forever doing what you want to do. That's all we're doing.
And while Autechre pushed their sound towards abstraction and complexity, Boards of Canada would take it somewhere warmer, nostalgic and strangely familiar. Where Boards of Canada blurred electronic music into hazy memories, Squarepusher tore it apart, combining frantic jungle breaks with jazz and live bass guitar.
This is your home studio?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. This is Squarepusher Central. Yeah.
You work here all the time?
Yeah. Basically, it's my full-time residential studio. Okay, so I'll just basically I'll run you from that again, and I'll show you what happens. It's that, it all breaks down into separate layers. Basically, drums on its own, bass guitar part, clavinet part, which is like 101, and then sort of like a sort of 101 kind of sound on top. So, do you see how it kind of just all sort of sits in layers, basically. It's quite good having it on 8-track. It's really good for mixing tracks down because you can bring stuff in and out really easily. And so forth. So that's how it works. And also you can do this. It's just the pitch control. It's really good. It's really handy. You can speed tracks up or down, but I generally don't speed them up because they're always too fast anyway.
Are you nervous?
No, but I will be. I will be about an hour before I go on. I don't have a coherent kind of picture of what I want from music, All I have is a mentality. Just like listening to to bebop jazz from the 40s is just as important as listening to, drum and bass in the 90s or listening to funk in the 70s. It's there's so much, that you just can't. I can't put myself in a position where I can't not listen to it. I have to have it all. I want to try and get as much of it in as possible. I listen to, as many records as I can. I don't know. This is experimental electronic, early 70s electronic. This is cop theme music, Herbie Hancock, amazing album. It's like a Buddy Rich. The thing is that all of the rhythms of drum and bass aren't new. Nothing about it is new at all. The only thing about it is new is that it's it's made with a sampler. You know, all the rhythms of jazz and stuff like that all the rhythms of drum and bass, come from all those jazz music and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, because what is drum and bass anyway?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Drum and bass is like a stupid phrase, isn't it? You know, it doesn't, you know, it just means like sort of, it's just like a term which like people use, isn't it, for make it easier.
And that collision of breakbeats, jazz and sampling would extend well beyond Warp Records. In 1997, Amon Tobin took it to Ninja Tune with his debut album Bricolage, a dense, cinematic collage where fragments of jazz and acoustic recordings were cut and rearranged into something that sounded almost entirely new.
My own music it's more about exploring sound and exploring what's possible with sound, and trying to find out about music as well, trying to learn about music and sound and why it does, you know, why it works the way it does. And it is that curiosity about things that tends to drive me and motivate me.
Nothing essential happens in the absence of noise. Nothing essential happens in the absence of noise. Essential happens in the absence of nothing essential.
So a lot of the sounds I'll make will be sort of hybrids of different things that I'll go out and I'll record the different elements of. So maybe, you know, just some leaves or something, you know, for the high part of a sound, and the middle part of the sound will be something else, maybe a synthesizer or some cutlery or something, and then as I go further down I'll try and get some bass tones, and in the end they'll all sort of morph as I play them, you know, because you can play with the you know the sort of like like bending a string or whatever. At the end of the day, I mean, it's all just tools and it's what you do with them. But I wouldn't ever say that, you know, you need this to sound good or you need that, you know, to make a good tune. Or I really firmly believe that music comes from people, and people will make amazing stuff out of nothing.
But Warp Records and Ninja Tune weren't the only ones shaping the culture. Founded by Mike Paradinas in 1995, Planet Mu became a crucial home for artists like Music, Venetian Snares, Luke Wiebert, and later more extreme strains of breakcore, jungle, and experimental electronics.
Yes, I do say mu a lot, and I probably shouldn't. I think mu is the correct pronunciation.
This is Richard, Matt, and Russell. This is Russell and Richard. This is Matt. He's filming a DVD for us, which he might release if it's any good. Because Harry at SID said DVDs will sell and records won't. You're not filming, are you?
There's kind of an irrationality to Planet Me that's kind of is similar to people's music taste. What Mike's managed to do with it is that he's kind of created this sort of very personal viewpoint of electronic music as it's evolved. You know, there isn't a huge deal of concern for what will sell or necessarily even how it will fit into the grander narrative of the label. If he hears something that he likes, he'll put it out.
He's the first to admit, I think my last album, he was absolutely sick of it by the time he'd finished with it, you know, because he'd spent so much time listening to it from all different angles, you know. I can't blame him. Who wouldn't be sick of my music after such an intense listening thing? But that's what he puts himself through with every record, you know. It's not like, oh, it'll do. It's like, no, it doesn't do. It's got to be right.
So I sent Mike like a bunch of demos. Luckily enough, he got back to me saying he liked pretty much all of them, apart from two. And I kind of appreciated his honesty. If he doesn't like a track, he'll definitely tell you.
The label's entirely a reflection of Mike's taste and personality and character.
Oh, Mike, if you know him, you realise he's quite weird.
He'll be the first to admit, I'm sure he's not a people person. But if he's not, then edit that bit out.
He's sort of honest and emotionally open and frank, kind of almost to a fault sometimes it seems, to the point where he'll admit that he pisses off artists by telling them that he thinks their music is shit.
He's an oddball, really. And I think you need that, though. I think you need oddballs in music.
So you can cut all that out. I'm Mike Paradinas from Planet Mu Records, and I run it. We've been going for 630 million seconds and 720,000. And two. We've released 199 albums and... Fuck, I've forgotten it. The name Planet Mu was a reference, I suppose, to Planet E, which was Carl Craig's label. I mean, literally, I just thought of it I just copied it. I've been releasing sort of, I suppose, techno-inspired music since about 93. I felt an affinity to Aphex Twin. I had my flatmate Dylan, who was the artist Jager, and he was making some really good stuff. By 97, I'd asked Virgin, who I was signed to, if they'd release this compilation. David Boyd, who was my A&R man over there, he said, yeah, that'd be... I don't know if he said fine, actually. He said, we'll give it a go, maybe. So this was our first compilation back in 97, Mealtime, which was important because it was the first time I was working on other people's music in terms of compiling an album. And that's my son on the front, who's now 19. He's eating a banana there.
And one last name that can't remain unmentioned is that of Chris Cunningham. Rarely is the visual identity of a genre so closely tied to one artist's unique vision. For IDM, that was Chris Cunningham, whose music videos for artists like Aphex Twin, Squarepusher or Björk helped define the visual look of electronic music in the 90s.
With me, it's purely reacting to the sound. I find that sound is what activates my imagination, really. I kind of spent my entire childhood laying by my dad's speakers, listening to music, with my eyes closed, always kind of picturing things. So I've kind of almost like got a library of connections my brain makes with sounds. With music videos, it's like 50% coming up with an idea and 50% trying to do it as good as you can in the very limited amount of time you have. I love whatever limitations come with the job, basically. I think because I spent a good 10 years working in the film industry as a technician, working for other directors, I kind of almost learned to work within restrictions and confines. I really kind of get off on it, For me, being given utter freedom can sometimes be, it's a hard starting point, it's hard to get up and running.
Chris is really refreshing, and maybe because he came from his special effects background, Aphex Twin was definitely a sort of seminal piece for him. He's just got amazing talent. He just comes up with fantastic ideas and executes them beautifully and has that edge that everybody so wants.
About 95, I kind of switched from using one half of my brain to the other. When I was a kid, I was really interested in anything technical. I was interested in the craftsmanship behind things. It was like, even though I enjoyed watching films, more than anything else, I was interested in finding out how it was done. I got into the film industry without any ambitions of being a filmmaker or having anything artistic to say, but more with the intention of finding out how things were put together and how things worked. First person I worked for was Clive Barker. I worked at Spitting Image for a while, doing engineering and sculpting, and then worked on Alien 3. I worked for Danny Cannon on Judge Dredd, and then went to work for Stanley Kubrick. Wanted to improve my drawing, so spent some time working in comics. With comic books, you have to kind of do things that jump out of the page and get your attention. So, I don't know, I suppose there might be some relationship there to do music videos.
So in the case of IDM, what began as an obscure offshoot of rave culture became something far more consequential. A space where the boundaries between the dance floor and listening room, between machines and musicianship slowly dissolved. And while IDM itself eventually faded as a meaningful label, many of its core ideas became building blocks for the electronic music in the decades to come.